All right, Kevin back with you for the next episode of the $1,000,000 Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with my friend Tony Teegarden. Tony, man, awesome to have you here. Welcome. So great to have you today.
I am thrilled to be here, man. I just want to say real quick, look, I know that, you yourself, obviously have been around a while, as we were talking about before. You've done some amazing things, and I'm sure, your listeners are doing some amazing things. And I know I'm doing some okay things, and I think maybe I'm excited probably most about this interview because we might be able to do something special together, just in this conversation, and hopefully it serves everybody that's here as well listening. So I'm thrilled to be here.
I will tell you, I guarantee you that is going to happen. And the fact that you and I have already both set the intention for that, then that, I mean, you can count on that double and quadruple, So so what we'll do
Perfect.
is, I want to just start by turning it over to you to just set a little bit of context and share a little bit about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do. We'll just start there, Tony.
Sure. So I like to consider myself more an investor than anything these days. I'll be very frank. It's a new label for me, so it still sounds funny when I say it. But certainly, I look at it as I invest in 7- and 8-figure businesses. And when I say I invest, meaning I invest my resources and my energy into creating an entirely new revenue stream with online digital businesses. So companies that are out there that are selling, it could be low ticket, could be high ticket, doesn't really matter. What I do is I come in and pretty much create an entirely new revenue source out of what we call trash can assets. So there's different parts of maybe their email lists they're not using, or they're underutilizing, or don't really, pay too much attention to. I can kind of go in there and with our special kind of mojo, kind of create an entirely new revenue streams for them. So we turn expense even, and I generally have been working, I work with 7- 8-figure businesses. I still do some coaching and consulting on the side just because I love teaching, something I just enjoy doing. I still being down in the trenches, so to speak, and just learning, because my real deep passion, I just love learning about people. Mm-hmm. I just really love the whole how relationships, like, it's one reason I was excited about this interview. I'm just thrilled by how relationships come together and complement each other when it comes to this world and this work that I do. Yeah. And how similar, even just outside, like, and even in intimate relationships or friendships or, and whatnot, like how similar the connections are and the transactions are between human beings. It's really fascinating. It's a lot of fun. And I think probably what I like most about what I do, it's like I get paid to like figure out puzzles that involve people, and that's fun. So that's what I would say is like probably the most enjoyable part.
Yeah. I'll tell you, that's a really good description. I mean, I'm listening to you describe what you do, and there's a whole lot of parallels there between what you do and what I do, even though it's completely different,
Yes.
And yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so now that we've got some context set, I'm going to switch gears, and so I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Tony, I'm just really excited to hear your story, your experience around this, and give you the opportunity to honor somebody or somebody's who have such a profound impact on your life and business.
Yeah, it's an easy, obviously easy answer for me. There's two people really that come to mind. Okay. One primarily in my online world, gentleman by the name of Frank Acoin, out of South Carolina. He's been probably for the last 18, 19 years, he's been a huge influence on me. We connected, I was selling legal insurance. We connected through that particular company, and just probably one of the most well-rounded, caring, intelligent, successful individuals. He's just been a fantastic, I dare say use the word role model in a sense, right? But I'd say like just someone that you really just feel good being around, right? And they just tend to bring out the best in people around them. And so that's what it's like being around Frank Acoin. He's just, always innovating. He's 80 years old, and there's no off button, which is great.
Yeah.
And he has like he's been married for 50 and been married now for 50 years. And so it's just, he's got kids and grandkids. There's a lot of really cool things that I respect about him. His marketing and business philosophies and perspectives are just endless. He's built multiple successful companies over the years, and now has a successful real estate company. I would say he has definitely been, I don't want to minimize that relationship comparative to what I'm speaking with my next individual. It's just because they're both in two different worlds. Like,
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Like Frank is more of like my rich dad, quote unquote, rich dad, poor dad, kind of story. He's there, but like, we're more like really off into the physical world, more or less. My second person would be Travis Sago. I've been working alongside of him in some capacity. I started out mentored by him going on 8 years ago now, 7 years for a fact, going on 8. And he has been probably hands down the second most, and I couldn't even say second. They're both neck and neck as far as between him and Frank that's had the greatest influence. I don't know what I'd be doing if I hadn't invested in Travis, 7 years ago, 7+ years. Everything changed. I would say probably the biggest thing is I changed and am still evolving. And it's because the one thing that Travis, I notice, also lives into, just like Frank does, is it's their personal philosophy and their stances on life, where they come from. A stance is someplace you come from. It's not somewhere you get to. And that's where, the joy comes from, being in the stance, like being in the moment. Travis is by far, just an incredible marketer. And, I've never seen anybody that approaches offers like he does, as concisely as he does. I've learned so much about offers, which, I still think it's funny they're not talked about nearly as much as I think that they should be in the market, at least in our small little online, internet market world. But even beyond that, Travis's philosophies and stances just go so far beyond the marketing pieces of it and the offer piece of it and everything. It's because his stance in business is, he sees the connections. And again, it's where I love doing the puzzle pieces. His stances connect in intimate relationships and business relationships and personal relationships. And so just how those all combine and come together, it's a really cool place to come from. And it's been a lot of fun just learning from him and working alongside of him at times, and just really just being involved. Like, I tell him all the time, I'm like, dude, my life is better because you're in it. So
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I'm not going to share it again. If somebody wants to go back and hear it, I did a interview a while ago with Justin Brook, and Justin, also the person that he honored, Travis too. And on that interview, I also shared a personal experience that I've had with Travis, because Travis has played a big role in my life too. I will not reiterate it here. If you want to hear that, go back and listen to the interview I did with Justin, because I share my story around Travis too. But I will second what you said, Tony, in that Travis, even though I haven't worked with him in the way that you have, I will say that Travis has had such a profound impact on my life. Partly because that he just believed in me. He trusted me when I was kind of getting going in the direction that I've now gone in. He was one of the very first people that was like, Kev, I'm in for that, man. Yeah, you need to do this, and I'm in. And he voted not just by saying yeah, but he voted with his pocketbook too. And that just meant a lot. And so I've got I got the utmost admiration and respect for that guy, just like you do, Tony. So what I'd like to do is take this a little bit deeper. And by the way, is it Frank Acoin, or is the
yes,
it is
yes.
Frank? Okay.
All coin. So it's AUCOIN.
AUCO. Okay, perfect. Okay, so what I want to ask you now is if we look at either Frank or Travis,
Mhm.
what is one thing, and then and if you can't, if you want to talk about more than one thing, that's fine, but I'll just frame it this. What is one thing that has transpired that you know was like you made this huge impact that you also know would have never ever happened if not for the relationship that you had with either Frank or with Travis?
Wow. Um, that's like an eight-armed octopus going in many directions right there that I could probably point to.
I know,
Uh,
yeah, there could be a lot.
that's a great question. No, it's a really good question. It just makes me really, really contemplate. You know, it's like the stuff that I've done with Frank over the years has been really, I would say, this it would be very similar to like with Travis, where Travis has a philosophy, you know, where we live from the inside out rather than from the outside in.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, like, just even the philosophies that these two men have demonstrated in their lives that I've seen value in, that I've decided to integrate and embody in my own life. Um, I can't tell you how many people I get a lot of private messages from people just because of a lot of. I like to write. It's one of my passions. I love to write and express and share things. And so there's a lot of things that I have shared throughout Facebook. Um, One in particular, I had a friend of mine reach out to me about a young lady that was her niece, that she was, I would say, concerned for her life, put it that way. Like the
Okay.
girl was in a very dark, depressive state. She wanted me to talk to her because she knows my history. I have a pretty dark past of stuff that I've had to go through, or that I've been privileged to go through, really. And she was like, you know, would you talk to her? You know, and I was like, I'm not qualified for that kind of work, you know. But long story short, the girl ended up calling me. I had an hour and a half conversation with her, and because just of one thing that Frank had shared with me many years ago, it had allowed me to impart a story with this young lady who took her from, she was a mom of four kids. She was depressed. She was kind of starting to neglect the children. She was, you know, just in a really depressed state because of her grandmother passing away. And that one conversation, that young lady reached out to me like 60 days later and told me how much her life had transformed because of that call.
Wow.
And I don't have time to get into the details of it, but she was like, I also went back to college, and she's, I'm writing you today because tomorrow I'm speaking in front of the class, which is something I never thought I would ever be able to do. And I just want to thank you.
Wow.
It was just like, you know, like you think about those, that wasn't me, right? That was just like, I look at it as like, that was that work moving through me,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like from, does that make sense? Like, I,
Totally.
I just,
You're the vessel. You're the
I'm just the
vessel.
vessel, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and so the same has been similar. Like I've been on a really interesting journey with Travis. He's probably one of the most humble individuals I've ever met. You know, I mean, I just can't say any nicer words. He's just super humble, you know, um, and he's probably he's got the biggest heart of anybody that I also know, just like Frank. They're both very similar in those senses. Um, but I know, like with Travis, I would not have made some of the impact in some of the companies and the businesses, you know, because what we do is we have like virtual sales teams. So what we do is we'll write an email, do a Facebook post that'll get people to raise their hands in my partner's audience, and then we have conversations with them in chat, and then we'll close them out and do high ticket sales, right? And you're like, okay, that's kind of like the formula to it. But to see what that does for people's lives when that works, when that happens, when they're bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, of money that they never would have had before, that they can start up charities and start serving different like it's money that they didn't have. I had one gentleman was like, dude, this was found money. This is all going to charity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Wow.
you're just like going, holy cow, like I had that. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Right. You know, it's just little things like you have no idea the ripple effects. I know Travis, for an example, the ripple effects that the impact he's made on me and the ripple effects that have happened in other people's lives because of what I've just simply been willing to live into and share. Right. Um, I mean, some of it's probably incalculable, you know,
Yeah.
of some of the impact. And again, has nothing more than me. And I was just one of the ripples. And I'm
Yes.
grateful.
Yeah.
You know, I might have just came a little bit closer to where the rock was thrown in the water, you know, maybe, but
Yeah.
um Yeah, I mean, just that one young lady's story, like that still touches me to this day. And just again, some of the work that I've done, Travis's work has impacted me both on a professional and a personal basis in ways that, again, I probably don't have time to talk about in this podcast. Um, and I've worked with his wife Jeannie also, by the way, and
Okay.
around relationships, and I've coached with her as well, and she's profoundly, and just it made an impact on me around my personal relationship, both with myself and ultimately with other people. And I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways also from with Travis. It's like the work that I've put forth into myself just because of his philosophies, his stances, and his love just to read, to write, to innovate, and to share. Like, I know those are his core things that he loves to do. I'm just so grateful that he is dedicated to what brings him joy, because I witness that, I see that, and I see all the amazing stuff that comes from that. And it does bring me a lot of joy and inspires me as well, but to do it in my own way. Right.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right. Yeah.
it's really fun. So I know I kind of answered your question. I kind of didn't, but
No, you did a great job of answering. And the reason I love asking that question, Tony, is because when we really do start looking at the ripple effect of what we do and the impact that we really have, through our relationships, it really, I mean, because I have long believed that as entrepreneurs, relationships are the most valuable asset that we possess, and everything else stems from that.
yeah.
And I watched this Garth Brooks documentary on Netflix 3 years ago in 2020 when COVID hit and stuff.
Mhm.
It's called The Road I'm On, and there's this in the second half of that he tells this story of his buddy. Oh my gosh, I'm just having a brain fart right now. I'm Pat. His buddy's name was Pat, and
Mm.
Pat Quigley was his name. Pat was Garth's connector,
Mm.
and Garth tells this story of Pat putting together this whole thing, and he comes to Garth. They're sitting down for dinner one night, and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "You ever think wouldn't it be cool if you could play at Central Park? Wouldn't that be cool?" And Garth's like, "Central Park, man, that'd be awesome,"
Mm.
and he's like,
Mhm.
and as far as I was concerned, that was just a conversation. It was like a dream we were having, and but unbeknownst to me, Pat goes to the folks at Central Park and he's like, "Hey, if I got Garth Brooks to agree to come play, and then I got HBO to come film and all that, would you guys open the park for us to do a show and stuff?" And they're like, "You got Garth Brooks and HBO?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd open the park for you." And then he goes to HBO
Right.
and he's like, "Hey, if I got Central Park to agree to open the park for us and I got Garth Brooks to come play, would you guys want to be a part of that?" And they're like, "You got Garth Brooks in Central Park? Yeah, we want to be a part of that." And
Yeah.
he goes back to Garth and he's like, "Remember that conversation we were having about you doing Central Park? Well, Central Park is doing this big, huge thing with HBO, and they want you to be the guy who does the show." And it ended up being, I mean, and they showed all the footage from the show. Over 1 million people showed up. It
Wow.
was the biggest thing ever done in Central Park. Billy Joel was there, and whether you're a Garth Brooks fan or not, I am a Garth Brooks fan.
Sure.
That guy is a showman. I mean, you talk about
100%.
Travis loving what he does.
Yeah.
You cannot. Anybody who loves what they do, it comes through loud and clear, and
Yeah.
that is totally true of Garth Brooks. And
Yeah.
and that guy Pat Quigley, he was sitting off to the side of the stage or somewhere watching all this, going, "You know what? None of these people even know that I exist, but I know.
Yeah.
Look at this, man." And that's when I got the vision. I was like, "That's me, man. I
Wow.
want to be doing that. I want to be having that kind of impact." And what I realized in watching that documentary is like, all I need to do is work with the right people. It's the
Yeah.
right people.
Yeah.
And it was 1 year later, August of 2021, one of the gals I was working with, she had $1 million win. She added $1 million of revenue to her business in 30 days after
Mm.
having a conversation with somebody else I connected her with.
Yeah.
And when I found out about that, I was like, man, that is so awesome. I want to have a conversation with you. I want to hear all about it. What happened? How did you make it happen? All that. And when we spoke, she was like, Kevin, she goes, I am so glad you wanted to have this conversation because I want to make sure you get the story right. Because
Right.
the $1 billion, she goes, that's great, but that ain't the win. She
Mm.
goes, the $1 million is going to allow us to keep growing the business. It's going to allow Mitch and I, her husband, to keep doing our philanthropic work, but that ain't the win. She goes, the win is the impact that
Right.
we're going to have on all those people who placed their trust in us and said yes.
Yes.
The impact that they're going to have on all the people that they serve. She goes, that's the win,
Yeah.
Kevin. And I'm like, look at that. You set this intention last year and look what's happening. And I'm like, I was so down. I was like, I want to do more of that right there. And so what you talk about, Tony, how it's just become normal for you at this point that I work with 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs, and
Yeah.
this is what I do for them. But because of the skill set and the gifts that you have honed in, and just over all these years, what, 8 years now, you've been doing this, you've just got world class, and it's now become just second nature to you. It's just what you do,
Mm.
it's because when somebody's invested their 10,000 hours, it's a beautiful, last night a cool thing happened in basketball,
Mm.
and I'm having it. LeBron James now is the NBA record holder as most points ever scored. He just beat out Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who had held the record since 1984.
Wow.
And it is such an amazing thing to watch. Like somebody, like I said, that is just so invested their time, has become world class at what they do because they make it look so easy, and it's a
Mhm.
beautiful thing to watch. But man, they put in their time to do that, to make it look that easy.
Yeah, yeah. We talk about that all the time, like with Travis, and everybody has their way of. Can we cuss on this
You
podcast? I
can
don't know.
say whatever you
Yeah.
want, and a well-polished
So
F-bomb is just fine.
no, no. It's just funny because it's like we all have. I've noticed this with Travis. I've noticed this with just myself. I've noticed this with a lot of folks that I've worked with. It's like you're going to have to get through the shitty parts.
Yep.
I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're at. And even then, it's like, do we even want to assign it the meaning that they're shitty parts, right? Like I look at Travis and I see like, he knows our brains are meaning assigning machines, right? And it's like, he's like, he'll go through, a stack of journals and he'll just burn through stuff, just getting stuff out of his head, just things that don't work or don't make, he's getting through the shit, but he's choosing it. He's intentional about it. And it brings him joy to do it because it's part of his makeup and he knows that about himself. And it's like, the Delphi oracles would say, it's like, it's not enough. We hear is like, know thyself. That's only one part of it, right? It's like, know thyself, be thyself, love thyself, right? So it's like when you love yourself, which, that's been my journey, is learning to fall in love with Tony, right? And take care of Tony and those sorts of things. And then to see someone like Travis who demonstrates that not only does he know himself and love himself, but he's just making it a practice to be himself every day and as much as possible. And he'll be the first to tell you, it's like, some days he's going to run up on the curb and, he's got little Travis talking in his ear. Like you've got, little Kevin, I've got little Tony, they're all barking stuff in our head that we sometimes don't want to hear. But at the same time, it's just that like, it is fantastic to see someone who just lives their life their way and does it in a way that it just has such a cool effect. And the cool thing is that like for money for me, I go from I don't chase the money any longer. And what's interesting is like I chase what's meaningful.
Yes.
And that's what I see these two gentlemen that I've shared with you today. Like they just focus on doing what's meaningful to them, like what they love doing, and they just don't get tired of it,
That's right. That's right.
So I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you're right. When you just when you're doing work that's meaningful, it doesn't feel like work. It's you get so much joy, you get so much satisfaction from doing it. And and at least for me, it's like, man, I want to do it more. I want to experience more of that. I want to help facilitate more of that,
Yeah.
And
And there's nothing wrong with having margin built into the meeting either, by the way. Like
that's
that's
right.
something else I had to learn that one,
Oh,
right? But it's like, you don't just go do what you're passionate about. We've all seen a lot of, broke, passionate people. But at the same time, like when you're producing results rather than trying to create results, it's very different. And that's what I've learned a lot through Travis is like producing results. I don't have to have the asset. I can get the asset. I can get control of the asset. I can borrow the asset, whatever, right? It's like he's shown me so many ways to shortcut the cycle to wealth, for an example, or shortcut the cycle to like even just doing what brings you joy and then being intelligent about the money, right? It's not that we don't pay attention to it. I like the whole idea of there being margin built into the meaning of it. Because why? Because then we can do more cool shit with it and help more people, right? So because personally, I mean, I don't need a lot of stuff. I don't have a big fancy house. I don't need that necessarily. But it's like, what else can you do with that could be meaningful and have fun? And like Frank has taught is like leave a legacy,
That's
how
right.
can you,
Yeah.
and yours will be, it sounds like will be, bringing relationships together. Like what a great legacy, like, the light that brings into the world. Super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Tony, I really appreciate you having this conversation. And for anybody listening to this going, dang, Kev, I really like that Tony guy. I love the way he shows up. And maybe they're one of those 7 or 8 figure companies that now they're thinking like, man, maybe there's something there. So Tony, how can they want to do that? How can they find out more about you and what you're doing?
There are 2 ways, probably, if they could either email me, and that's going to be at tonyteegarden@gmail.com.
Okay.
TonyTeegarden@gmail.com. Or they can find me on Facebook. I'm there. Or also LinkedIn. I'm the only Tony Teegarden you're probably going to find on social media. I have found some impersonators, but they're not using my name, just my pictures. So, but yeah, they can go, and Facebook is a great place. That's where I kind of do most of my hanging out, for the most part. So they can friend me on there and direct message me. And if they would be so kind as to let me know that they came because of this connection, which, of course I value, that'd be fantastic too. So
Sure. Yeah, you and me both. That's Facebook is the easiest place to find me.
yeah.
It's like all these people say, well, Kev, you should be on LinkedIn too. And you know what, maybe, but doing what
I'm
feels
there.
right.
I'm there out of
I'm there.
yeah, I'm there, but it's not my main playground. I like to play on Facebook. So
Yep.
that's it.
Well, yeah, Tony, like I said, once again, really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Any last thing you want to share before we call it a wrap?
Man, I just want to thank you. Again, you and I up until this point hadn't really had an opportunity to connect or we got a good half hour before we even started to kind of connect. It was really fantastic. And thank you. And yeah, I'm just really grateful and thank you for the opportunity to have me here. I thank you, your listeners, for spending the time with us. And I hope we can connect and continue to bring value.
Absolutely. Well, Tony, thanks again. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.